Ode to Nightingale, the speaker addresses to Nightingale, and he claims that it's not because of envy, that he's not envious with free flight, carefree uh, nature of Nightingale and its spell of musical power. Rather, he is very happy in Nightingale's happiness. Then he admires Nightingale's flight, light wing dried of the trees in some melodious plot of beechen green and shadows numberless sing of summer in full-throated ease. He is happy that Nightingale enjoys the warmth of summer season and sings its song. Then he mentions for wine, actually to forget of for a draught of wine that vintage that has been cooled a long age in the deep delved earth, tasting of flora and the country green. In these three lines, there is a desire for vintage or wine that can be helpful to forget these pangs of separation. Then dance and provincial song and sunburnt mirth. These are also, you can see, the modes of ecstasy that can make someone carefree or forgetful of the painful realities of the real world. Oh, for a beaker full of the warm south, full of true, the blushful hippocrane, which beaded bubbles winking at the brim, and purple stained mouth, that I might drink and leave the world unseen, and with thee fade away into the forest tree. Probably the speaker actually heard Nightingale singing in a far off forest, and then he desires to reach there and listen the songs of Nightingale. First, he mentions wine, then dance, song, sunburnt, mirth or happiness, and uh, claims that that's the nightingale, that's a beaker full of the warm south, full of true blushful hippocrene. And uh, he wants to drink that wine and leave that world to join Nightingale in the forest. In fourth stanza, that is thought most important reflection of real life. Fade far away, dissolve and quite forget what though among the leaf has never known. If it is taken as an imperative, it means Nightingale should be far away and be away with those realities, grave realities, which the speaker has got exposure, which the speaker has got experience. Other, if it's not imperative, then it shows his own desire, which is continuity of a previous stanza, mean he wants to uh, drink and forget the world, and he has a desire to be away of this troublesome real world. And then the picture of the real world is drawn. The real world is known for weariness, fatigue, passionless, worn out, the fever and the fret. Use of alliteration is there. The fever and the fret mean the world of, you can say, ailments, suffering, worries, where here the men sit and hear each other groan, where palsy shakes a few, mean that's the state of those who cannot move, and there are old people with gray hair. Youth grows pale and spectra thin and dies. Mean not only there is suffering of the old people, old age, young people also suffer. You can say grows pale because of different diseases and dies, and the color of life are stolen. We are but to think is to be full of sorrow. That is also very much famous line and typical of kids amusing the pain. To think is to be full of sorrow and laden eyed despairs. Where beauty cannot keep her lustrous eyes, mean beauty of the human world uh, is going on decline, that cannot keep her, you can say, climax, cannot keep her blossomed face with lustrous eyes. Our new love pine at them beyond tomorrow. So the fourth stanza that is quoted a lot for realist portrayal of the world from where the poet wants to escape. Fifth one is an urge to be a part of Nightingale's world, but not through mechanical modes or wine, rather through the poetry. Away, away, for I will fly to thee, not charioted by Bacchus and his parts. Bacchus, who is Dionysius, actually, the god of wine. So that's not chariot of Dionysius or Bacchus, mean that will not be wine which will help him to leave this real world and join the world of Nightingale, but on the viewless wings of poesy. That's also important quote of this poem. On the viewless wings of poesy, mean unseen wings of poetry he will use to fly to the nightingale. Though the dull brain perplexes and retards, already with thee, tender is the night. And happily the queen moon is on her throne, clustered around by all her starry face. No, uh, he feels that his speaker feels that his brain is perplexed with different images. One is Queen Moon on her throne that is clustered by her starry face. Here there is no light save what from heaven is with the breeze blown, though wondrous glooms and winding mossy ways. So peace, pleasure, calmness that is in the world of nightingale. That's that's the world of imagination. And in real world, there is gloom, there is pain, there is stress. No, he imagines in a forest in sixth stanza, and he describes the, you can say, forest or jungle. I cannot see what flowers are at my feet, nor what soft incense hangs upon the boughs, but in embalmed darkness, the seasonable month endows, the grass, the thicket, and the fruit tree wild, white heaven, and the pastoral eglantine, fast fading violets covered up in leaves. And mid May's eldest child, the coming musk rose, full of dewy wine, the murmurous haunt of flies on summer eves. Um, he is fascinated, you can say, with the beauty of forest, with its trees, leaves, flowers, grass, the colors of the flowers like white hawthorn and musk rose and pastoral eglantine, and um, it's because of that supposition that nightingale is in the forest. So what was thought to be the part of Nightingale's world through wingless poesy, wingless poetry, that's in sixth stanza. Mean imagination leads the speaker to the forest. In seventh stanza, there is the sharing that's darkling. I listen, and for a time I have been half in love with easeful death, called him soft names in many amused rhyme, to take into the air my quiet breath, no more than ever seems it rich to die, to seize upon the midnight with no pain, while thou art pouring forth thy soul abroad in such an ecstasy. These four lines are important. No more than ever seems it rich to die, to seize upon the midnight with no pain, while thou art pouring forth thy soul abroad in such an ecstasy. Still would thou sing, and I have ears in vain, to thy high requiem become a sword. Um, you can say it's a desire to be immortal in a beautiful moment, in a beautiful sight, in a beautiful feeling. That's the mood of uh, excitement and ecstasy, where the poet wants to listen to the song and uh, calling nightingale with different names. You can say uh, out of his love for the bird and its song, and in that state he would prefer to live mortal for the sake of immortal world. In eighth stanza, he admired nightingale, calling nightingale immortal bird. Nightingale is immortal because of its song that makes the bird immortal. Otherwise, the body of the bird is not mortal. Uh, the bird of the body of the bird is not immortal, it's mortal. Though was not born for death, immortal bird, no hungry generation tread thee down. The voice I hear this passing night was heard in ancient days by emperor and clown. Emperor and clown mean everyone. Perhaps the self-same song that found a path through the sad heart of Ruth when seek for home. Ruth is a mythical character known for, you can say, sickness of home. She stood in tears amid the alien corn, the same that oft times has charmed magic casement, opening on the foam of perilous seas in fairy lands forlorn. He calls the bird immortal because that's the immortal song of the bird that has attracted uh, the ears, attracted the human beings across generation, across classes, mean emperor and clone mean everyone, and from every age they have been tempted to listen to that song, and casements have been opened just to listen to that song. As Gratian was a cold pastoral, the world of Nightingale is forlorn. And with that word, his mood changes first. He was desirous to leave the mortal world that is full of agony, pain, suffering, and join the happiest state of Nightingale's song. But he now feels forlorn, sad and lonely. The word is like a bell to toll me back from thee to my soul self. That's forlorn of the world that drives him back. And then he says, adieu, the fancy cannot cheat so well as she is famed to do, deceiving elf. Famous line mean the imagination. Fancy, a word has been equated with imagination here. And it cannot, you can say, cause a longer escape. Uh, it is, you can say, overrated, or it is exaggerated that it can do more. Sooner or later, one has to return to the world. Adieu, adieu, thy plaintive anthem fades, past the near meadows, over the still stream, up the hillside, and know it's buried deep in the next valley glades. Was it a vision or a waking dream? Fled is that music, do I wake or sleep? He feels that uh, he has returned, and the song is actually continues to the next meadows, next streams, in next valleys, uh, but he is no more with that song or with the spell of that song. He has returned, but still he is in a state of trance. He cannot decide whether he is asleep and had a vision while sleeping, or that is a waking dream which he has seen in wakeful condition.